Here's the promise and the insult. By the end of this episode, you'll be able to spot the most profitable lie in modern Dharma, the idea that detachment is kindness. It isn't. Half the time, letting go is the Buddhist ego laundering avoidance, ghosting with incense, indifference with mantras, cowardice cosplaying equanimity. Real non-clinging is a change in grip. Fake non-clinging is a disappearance act that outsources pain to the person you just released. The minimalist aesthetic, soft voice, cool gaze, impeccable posture looks gentle because it makes no mess on your side of the table. It leaves the entire mess on theirs. The doctrine you quote to varnish the exit, no self, impermanence, equanimity, becomes a weapon when it prevents the sentence that would actually be kind. Here is the truth. Here is the boundary. Here is the goodbye with nouns. Rejection is not evil. It is a structural feature of finite lives. The sin here isn't saying no, it's refusing to carry your share of the cost of the no, then calling the refusal wisdom. Buddhist ego loves that trick because it buys moral superiority at a discount. You get to look serene while someone else does your grieving, and your Sangha will clap because we have trained ourselves to mistake quiet for care. This episode is an audit. We'll map the three costumes of letting go, cool cruelty, devotional bypass, managerial compassion, show how each converts your comfort into their work, and end by naming what kindness actually smells like when the flower dies. Explicitness, consequence, witness, closure. If that threatens your halo, good. Halos were always a way to dodge receipts. Rejection starts before the sentence. It begins as valence management. Your nervous system feels the shove of unpleasantness, labels it drain, and your inner publicist drafts a Buddhist press release to justify escape. Watch the choreography. 1A charge arises, need, conflict, mismatch. 2, panic imagines cost. 3, the ego grabs a doctrine, emptiness, non-attachment, compassion. 4, you let go by removing contact, context, and consequence. 5, the abandoned person is now stuck paying the bill. Ambiguity, self-doubt, social fallout. Call it what it is, preference protected by metaphysics. Ghosting becomes silence is wise. Stonewalling becomes, I refuse to solidify your story. Subtly cruel timing becomes, I honor transience. And the killer move, I'm letting go for your sake. A sentence that performs benevolence while denying the other adult the data required to heal. The Buddhist ego loves clean escape routes because they maintain the brand, calm, special, above mess. But Dharma is not an aesthetic. It's an ethic of contact that refuses hallucinated self-protection when the cost is someone else's sanity. This is where no self is often misused. Anatta cancels ownership, not answerability. If the self is a process, then responsibility is distributed across conditions. But the condition under your control is the sentence you're avoiding. Real non-clinging doesn't erase the human. It erases the alibi. If you won't speak the truth that frees the other person to grieve, you're not practicing emptiness. You're outsourcing cleanup. Equanimity is the most abused word in the contemplative lexicon. Properly understood, it's freedom from capture by pleasant, unpleasant. Improperly wielded, it becomes cool cruelty, effect so flat that other people's nervous systems can't find traction. The Buddhist ego discovers early that neutrality plays as superiority in rooms trained to fear drama. So you perfect the look, serene gaze, minimal words, a vibe of untouchability. You call it non-reactivity. They experience it as erasure. Here's the Konica. Equanimity regulates your arousal. Kindness regulates the field, the intersubjective space where two organisms decide whether to continue, repair, or part. If your stillness prevents the other person from accessing clarity because they can't read you, your stillness is not medicine, it's a moat. You have turned a contemplative achievement into a status device that keeps you safe and leaves them scrambling for signs. And in spiritual economies, the power differential magnifies the harm. Students interpret your detachment as their unworthiness. Peers interpret it as judgment. Communities interpret it as law. When called out, cool cruelty hides behind right speech. I'm avoiding harshness, but right speech is not say nothing that could be felt as sharp. It is speech that minimizes unnecessary harm while maximizing necessary truth. Sharpening a clean no can produce acute hurt. Refusing to speak produces chronic harm that metastasizes into stories. Equanimity, worthy of the name, has the spine to deliver a no cleanly, in time, with context. Anything else is a cage with candles. There's a softer costume, devotional bypass. Instead of weaponizing cool, you weaponize sweetness. I'm praying for you. May you be happy. Trust karma. What's meant to fall away will. Every sentence glows. None of them lands. The Buddhist ego prefers this because it protects self-image as benevolent while quietly refusing the only kindness that counts in finite lives, specificity. Blessings are not boundaries. Mantras do not replace messages. Merit transfer can be heartfelt. It cannot stand in for the paragraph that frees someone from waiting. Then comes the hierarchy alibi. I'm only a channel. Teacher X taught me to release with love. Number. The moment your action produces dependency without data, you're not a channel, you're a cause. Karma is intention, not ambience. Intention means aim enacted. If your enactment leaves the other person unable to orient because you wrapped your exit in scented mist, your karma is confusion, packaged as care. Devotional bypass spreads because communities reward piety over clarity. You can always sell a room on love. You cannot always sell it on logistics. But grown love is logistical. It honors endings with delivery dates, not incense, with witnesses, not vibes, with grief that isn't outsourced to the person with less power. Letting go with love is a beautiful phrase. It becomes a lie the instant it prevents the one sentence that actually lets the other person go. Corporate spirituality has its own mask, managerial compassion, sanitized scripts that say nothing while sounding humane. You've heard it. We so value your contribution in this season, unfortunately, or in Sangha speak, we honor your practice. At this time, the container isn't aligned. These phrases protect institutions from lawsuits and leaders from discomfort. They do not protect human beings from the void created by abstraction. Managerial compassion is attractive to Buddhist egos because it feels adult. Measured tone, careful cadence, neutral nouns. But the truth of a no lies in edges. What is ending? When? What remains? What doesn't? What the decision was for, not just what it was against. Sanitized speech keeps reputations clean and histories dirty. People fill blanks with self-blame, rumor, or rage. And in spiritual contexts, the blank space becomes theological. Maybe this is my karma. Maybe the teacher sees something. Institutions justify this opacity as protecting privacy. Sometimes that's real. Often it's a cover for power hoarding. Leaders who won't be audited, decisions that can't survive sunlight. If your rejection template cannot be read out loud in a room without producing confusion, it isn't compassion, it's brand management. The Dharma didn't survive 2,500 years by optimizing for optics. It survived where adults spoke plainly enough for endings to end. Here's the heresy: kindness has teeth. Non clinging isn't floating above outcomes, it's releasing the fantasy of control while accepting responsibility for consequences your choice foreseeably creates. That looks like this, stripped of poetry. You name the change. You acknowledge the cost to the other. You accept proportionate obligations that reduce unnecessary harm. You provide enough context that their story doesn't have to become self-annihilating myth. None of that is clinging. All of that is care. The Buddhist ego resists because consequence sounds like bondage, but consequence is how adults honor freedom. When you refuse consequence, someone else pays it, usually the less powerful person, the junior student, the staffer on a visa, the partner economically entangled, the friend whose social world is the sangha you still get to keep. Letting go in those asymmetries without consequence is not liberation. It's eviction in silk. Notice what I did not say, that you owe open-ended emotional labor, that endings must be mutual, that kindness equals consensus. I said finite, explicit consequence scaled to your role in the harm you're creating by leaving. Real equanimity signs for that bill without affect theatre. False equanimity calls the bill samsara and slides it across the table. We've privatized closure into diaries and altars. That's lovely and insufficient. Closure is civic. It requires witness, so reality stabilizes, ledger, so facts outlive moods, and release, so both sides regain motion. Without witness, memory quarrels with itself. Without ledger, communities rot in rumor. Without release, rejection converts into orbit, two bodies circling mutual absence, burning fuel. Buddhist spaces often botch this because we fetishize interiority. We assume that if everyone meditates enough, truths will emerge and hurts will dissolve. Meanwhile, the species remains vertebrate. Vertebrates need rituals that move weight from mind to room. It happened, we saw, we recorded, we end. If you're allergic to the word ritual, call it ops, an orderly hallway where relationships can change class without setting the building on fire. Here's the pulse. Clean rejection is a kind of public service. It reduces stochastic cruelty, the random pains of ambiguity, and increases predictability, which is the bedrock of safety for nervous systems that have been colonized by maybe. The Buddhist ego fears being the bad guy. The Dharma is uninterested in your costume. It wants to know whether your no prevents more harm than it creates, whether your exit leaves a map, and whether your legend shrank enough to let someone else breathe. You are allowed to say no. You are not allowed to sanctify dereliction. The Dharma you quote to justify the silent exit was meant to free you from possession, not from answerability. If your letting go deletes context, you aren't dissolving ego, you're polishing it. If your equanimity refuses consequence, it isn't sublime. It's subsidized by the person you left holding your unsent sentences. So measure your kindness by how cleanly others can continue after you're gone, not by how serene you look while leaving. Measure your non clinging by the weight you're willing to carry so someone else doesn't drown in ambiguity. Measure your maturity by whether your community could read your goodbye out loud without needing to translate it into myth. The only spiritual superiority that exists is quieter rooms and fewer ghosts. Everything else is theater. Burn the incense if you like. Keep the mantra if it steadies you. But do not sell abandonment in robes. If your love can't say a painful truth with nouns, it isn't love, it's self-portraiture. If your wisdom can't take a small fair share of the cost of your own decision, it isn't wisdom, it's a brand. If your letting go saves your image and breaks their future, it isn't Dharma, it's desertion. Drop the halo, say the sentence, leave the key.